Target opened 133 stores in Canada and closed every one inside 2 years. $2 billion gone. Not because Canadians stayed away, they came. You just could not buy anything because the shelves were empty. Here is the system. Start with the strange part. This was not a business that slowly lost its customers. It never really opened. In the first weeks, shoppers walked in and found gaps. Not one empty shelf, whole aisles. Meanwhile, 3 brand new distribution centers were so full that trailers waited outside with nowhere to unload. Full warehouses, empty stores. When you see those two things at the same time, the product was not the problem. The information was. Here is what Target tried to do. In 2011, it bought the leases of a failing Canadian chain and got about 124 locations in a single purchase. Then it set a date. Stores would open in early 2013. To hit that date, it had to build an entire company from nothing in about 2 years. New stores, new distribution centers, new staff, and a completely new set of computer systems. The American ones could not simply be copied across a border with a different currency, different taxes, and 2 languages on every label. If you have ever launched anything, you already know which of those is the hard one. In America, those systems had been tuned for decades. Every product record had been corrected 100 times by people who noticed when something looked wrong. Canada got a clean database. A clean database sounds like an advantage. It is an empty one. It is a brand new phone with nobody in the contacts. So teams filled it. Every product needs a record before a supply chain can move it, not just a name and a price. The system needs the height, the width, the weight, the barcode, the cost, and the number of units inside a shipping case. That last one matters more than anything else on the list. If the record says a case holds 24 bottles and it really holds 12, every order the system places is wrong by half. Nobody sees an error, they see a shortage. Now multiply that across tens of thousands of products, loaded fast, by people working to a deadline. The data arrived from suppliers in whatever format they happen to have. Reporting after the collapse found that only about 30% of it was reliable. Read that number again. A replenishment engine is not intelligent. It is nothing like the AI you talk to now. It is a very fast calculator that completely believes whatever you type into it. Feed it a wrong case quantity and it will order the wrong amount every single day and never once complain. Your chatbot would at least argue with you. Now watch what that does downstream. Wrong dimensions mean the warehouse software reserves the wrong slot, so pallets do not fit where the system says they fit. Imagine ordering a shoe rack and taking delivery of a wardrobe. Wrong case quantities mean too much of one thing arrives and none of another. The distribution centers jammed within weeks. Product customers wanted was inside the building, and the building could not get it out. So Target did something that sounds reasonable in a crisis and was actually the end. It switched the automatic replenishment off. When forecasts are built on bad data, the automatic orders look insane. So the team turned the machine off and started ordering by hand. Think about what that means for you as a manager. They had spent 2 years and hundreds of millions building the nervous system of the company. Then they unplugged it in the middle of the launch. Manual ordering cannot see across a network. It can only guess, one store at a time. That is building email and then going back to the post office. Here is the third mechanism, the one that made this fatal instead of embarrassing. Target opened 124 stores in about 10 months. In operations, you never launch like that. You pilot one site. You run it until it is boring. You measure what broke, you fix the system, and only then do you multiply. Target multiplied first. So every data error, every jammed dock, every untested process arrived at full scale. Nobody had the chance to learn from a small version of it first. There was no quiet single store where the problem could be found cheaply. By the time the pattern was visible in the numbers, it was already the whole country. That is learning multiplication before you learn addition. I have spent 15 years auditing operations like this one. The master data is the first place I look because it is the last place anyone else looks. On one project at a reputable FMCG company, the stock file said we held 6 months' worth of an item. We walked the floor and counted barely a week's worth. Nobody was stealing anything. The record had been wrong for years, and every plan built on top of it had been wrong too. The lesson I took from that? When a system misbehaves, people always suspect the process or the people first. Check what the machine believes before you change either. It costs a day. On that job, it would have saved us numerous stockouts. It would also have saved hours of desperate searching for products that did not exist. And no, they were not using random storage. They simply did not know what they had. Once those three mechanisms were running, the collapse had its own engine. A customer walks in, finds an empty shelf, and buys nothing. Sales fall. The forecast reads that fall is low demand and orders even less. The shelf gets emptier. A tower of cards does not fall because one card is weak. It falls because every card is leaning on another. Prices at the till did not always match the flyer either, so trust went as well. Canadians had waited years for this store. They visited once, they were disappointed, and disappointment travels faster than any advertisement you can buy. In January 2015, Target announced it would close all 133 stores, around $2.1 billion of operating losses, a pre-tax charge near $5.4 billion, 17,600 people out of work. Not one of those numbers was caused by a bad location or a weak brand. Here is the part that matters to you, because you are probably not opening 100 stores. Every operation you run has a database underneath it, a stock file, a customer list, a price table, a set of standard times. Nobody audits those because they are dull and nothing visibly breaks when they are wrong. That is exactly the danger. Bad data never announces itself. It just makes every decision slightly wrong, quietly, at machine speed, until the day the shelves are empty and everybody blames the strategy. Check what your machine believes before you scale anything. So here is the whole failure on one card. 1. Bad item data because nobody verified what got typed in. 2. A blind forecast because the engine believed it. 3. Distribution centers that jammed and could not release the stock. 4. Empty shelves, so the customers stopped coming. 5. A spiral because falling sales told the system to order even less. 5 steps, and none of them are about Canada. Every one of them can happen inside your operation. $2 billion lost to fields in a table. That is what happens when a company gets everything right except the numbers underneath it. Next, something much faster. A business that changed exactly one thing in its supply chain over a single weekend and could not feed its own customers by Monday morning. 700 locations shut. One decision. If you want to get better at how your own work actually runs, subscribe. One system, taken apart every week.